If you've ever wondered how to quickly build an array of frames like this and then have an image go across all of those frames, you're in the right place. That would be the Work Smarter, Not Harder Dojo with me, Tony Harmer, aka the Design Ninja. Okay, so I'm here in a new document, and what I'm going to do is tap F to get the frame tool that lives over here with the frame tools in the toolbox. It's the top of that stack. And I'm going to start up at the top margin here. Of course, your design may start anywhere. Now I'm going to press and drag across like so. Now I'm not going to release at this particular point. What I'm going to do is tap the right arrow key to add more columns. The left arrow key takes those away, but the right arrow key to add some more columns here. And then the up arrow key to add some more rows. And again, the down arrow key removes some rows. So I'm going to go almost to the side just here, but not the whole way. And you'll see why in just a second. At that point, I'll release and my array of frames is drawn. I'll then tap V to go to the selection tool. And what I'm going to do is press at the corner here. Okay, and just wait for a second before I move, because that way I go into patient user mode and I can get a preview of what I'm doing. So rather than changing the size of these, which I'm doing at the moment, what I'm going to do is hold down the space bar and suddenly I'm changing the size of the gaps, not the objects, which is ideal for what I'm doing here. So I'll stop at that particular point, release the mouse or trackpad, and then release the spacebar. Okay, so I've got everything the way I want it, but I want to mix it up just a little bit more. And to do that, I'm going to get the gap tool. If you tap U on your keyboard, that's where you'll access it. And you'll see that as you move across different gaps, then it will highlight those gaps. Okay, and you can treat them almost as objects. If you click and drag, it will move the gap. Like so. Additionally, if you hold down some modifier keys, it will change other things. So if I just go ahead here and hold down the Command key, that allows me to actually change the size of the gap. So if I want different sizes of gaps, I can do that really quickly, like so. And you'll notice that when I get to a certain point, if it recognizes a similar gap, okay, somewhere else, so if I make this one wider, and then go ahead and make this one wider, and it tells me when those things are equidistant, which is really, really useful. I can also hold down the Option key if I want to move the objects connected to a gap. I'll just undo that. And the Shift key, which only works on gaps between objects like so. So I can very quickly come along and mix these up so that I've got a nice array of different size frames. Okay, so now I've got my array. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything just there, and then I'm going to hold down the Command key. That would be Control on Windows and tap 8 to turn these into a compound path. Now, if I go to the Objects menu and down to the Paths menu, you'll see that that command is actually there, as is the option to release it with its mega shortcut just there. Anyway, now I've got my compound path, I can go ahead and add an image. So I'm going to go to my libraries here. I think I'll have this one of London and drag this in and drop it in this top corner left frame. Although you can drop it in any frame, it's just handy to know which one you're dropping it into, and you'll see why in just a moment. So just like any other frame, I can go ahead and use commands here like to fill the frame proportionally. So everything will fill across all of those, and of course all of the other things you see here too. So if you want to do an edit, you've got a couple of options. Okay, so what I'm going to do is tap A on my keyboard to get the direct selection tool. And I'm going to drag around one of these frames. Now, if I wanted to remove a frame, let me just go over to maybe this large frame just here, I'm going to drag around that frame to select it, okay, and then hit delete to take that away. Now, if I wanted to resize a frame, okay, or even between two frames, I need to drag across those points, okay, and then use my arrow keys, okay, to nudge those around like so, if you need to make a small adjustment like that. Now, it's important that you don't click on the frame, because if you do that with the direct selection tool, all you're doing is selecting the image that's inside of there, okay, so that's the important thing there. If you want to do an edit beyond that, okay, then what you need to do is actually stop it being a compound path, and useful information to have is which frame the image comes from, and we know that it's this top left-hand corner one. So I'll use the shortcut here, Shift, Option, Command, that'd be Shift, Alt, Control on Windows, and 8, and suddenly you'll see everything drops back to this frame. Now, if you did need to delete that, it's not a big deal. You could just go ahead and make a new compound path and add the image again. But let me just make a couple of changes here. So what I'm going to do, just for the purposes of this demonstration, is rotate one of those around and intersect it with the one underneath. You'll see that you get something interesting potentially happening there. And I'm going to resize this one, okay, because it doesn't work terribly well there. I'll then select everything, use Command 8 again, and you can see now, okay, that they're all joined back together like so. So that's the trick. You need to kind of unwrap it and then rewrap it for it to work. In a moment, I'm also going to show you how you can access loads of hints when you're using pretty much any tool in InDesign. Okay, so how can you access hints for any tool that you're using in InDesign so you can remember all of the modifier keys and all of that stuff while you're learning? And in fact, even if you've been using InDesign for a long time and you've just not explored all of the tools. Well, what I'm going to do is just quickly create a new document. So I'm just going to do Command N here and just accept whatever is the default just there. And I'm going to go ahead and quickly draw an array of shapes here, like this, like that, using my arrow keys. Sound effects are optional, okay? And then I'll tap U to get my gap tool. Well, how do I remember that holding down Shift allows me to just change objects connected to a single gap, and the Option allows me to move the things connected to a gap, and that Command allows me to change the size of the gap between things? Well, this is where I'm going to reveal that to you. If you go to the Window menu and come down to the Utilities menu, down at the bottom here is this handy panel called Tool Hints. And I so wish that Illustrator and Photoshop and all of those had something like this, but it's only InDesign, unfortunately. So here it tells you a little bit about the gap tool, what it does. It tells you about the modifier keys you can use when you're working with it, and the shortcut to access it. And of course, because I know most of those, I'll just go through a couple for you. So if I tap V for the selection tool here, you can see all of the modifiers there. If I tap backslash for the line tool, if I tap M for the rectangle tool, F for the frame tool, P for the pen tool, you can see all of those things. If I hold down Shift and tap I to get the color theme tool, it's all there. So that's a really handy thing to have around. You can just have that sitting there while you're learning, and it will make your work so much faster. But for now, we're done. So do subscribe and come along and join me again here in the Work Smarter, Not Harder dojo. See ya.